What's up, guys? It's your boy Dorian here, back at it again with another video here on the Geeks of Color channel. And with me today is RB3, and we are going to be reviewing Lovecraft Country, the first episode. And we have a very special guest. A lot of you guys already probably know her, but we have Karama Horne, aka the Blurred Girl. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
And like I said, I'm sure our Geeks of Color fans already know who you are, but can you just introduce yourself, what you're about, and what you do?
Cool. I'm the Blur Girl, Karama. I'm a contributing editor to Sci-Fi Wire. I have my own site, The Blur Girl. And basically what I do is I'm a content creator parked at the intersection of geekdom and diversity. That's basically what I tell everybody. And I currently have my own live show, The Blur Girl Live, that's on Tuesdays on Twitch. Actually coming up on the final episode of the season, but don't worry, you can rewatch everything. And I'm just literally so excited about this show. I've been so excited for it to drop and to be able to talk about it. And I'm sure you guys are too.
Yeah, and speaking of your show, real quick, I just want to mention you had a special director that just joined recently, a special Oscar winning director. Who was that?
It's funny, believe it or not, I had two. I had Matthew Cherry, who is the Oscar winning director of Hair Love, and my guest last week was Peter Ramsey, the Oscar-winning co-director of Into the Spider-Verse, and people don't realize one of the executive producers of Hair Love. So people don't realize that those two are actually connected. So yeah, it was great. And actually, Peter was so generous with this time. He was there for almost like 2 hours, just talking about what it's like, and his whole trajectory. It was a really great episode. I had no idea before I talked to him that he had worked really closely as a storyboard artist with just all kinds of creators for a long time before he got into animating. So yeah.
For sure, and definitely make sure to check that out. It was amazing. So you can find that on her on Twitch, and we'll have all the information in the link in the description. But now let's go ahead and talk about this show. So we all got to see the first episode of Lovecraft Country, and my God, I was just blown away. So before we talk about it, let's just give a little background about the story. So Karama, I'll pass it to you. Can you just, for people that aren't familiar with the show or the premise of the show at all, and they just see like, oh, what's this? Can you just talk about briefly what this show is about?
I'm trying to think of the shortest way to explain it, but basically, Lovecraft Country is basically like a cosmic horror story set in the South, in the Jim Crow South.
Mm-hmm.
And so in basically the storytelling vein that we're kind of all used to now, from like in the same vein of Jordan Peele and the same vein of Watchmen and things like that. It's this fictional story about this family of basically kind of sort of monster hunters, and the monsters that they are fighting in Lovecraft Country, which also include very angry racist white people.
Yeah,
that's the shortest.
and yeah, pretty much like
way to sum it up.
Yeah, that really was a great way to sum it up. And speaking of that, so we have our main stars, the main family is Atticus Freeman, who is played by Jonathan Majors. We have George, who's played by Courtney B. Vance, who's the uncle to Atticus Freeman, and then we have Lydia. I'm pronouncing the name right, Karama? Lydia.
It's funny. I thought it was Letitia, but it's okay.
See,
we'll say Lydia.
We'll say Lydia for now. But she's played by Journey Smollett, and they absolutely all kill it. We have some other cast members we'll be introduced to along the way, but those are the main trio who we get to see throughout this journey. So I'll pass it off to you, RB3, and get your first thoughts. What did you think about this first episode that you've seen thus far?
Well, I thought it was really amazing. I thought the concepts that they're introducing were just really stuff that were kind of really imaginative and like real life and reality based. You know, the idea of taking the Lovecraft, the ideas of Lovecraft, H.P. Lovecraft, whose influence has been seen in a lot of movies that we're familiar with, like Guillermo del Toro movies, like a lot of horror and a lot of science fiction over the years. But then it's set to these undertones of like who he really was as a real person, which I didn't know a lot about, being honest, going into this episode. And they kind of describe how he wrote this really racist poem back in like 1912. And, you know, he had and we do deeper research. He did a lot of anti-Semitic stuff and supported Hitler and a lot of really, really terrible things. So it makes you look at what his legacy was, you know, from that perspective, and you take that and compare it to the story of the American South and how much evil is underrooted in that and how much racism is underrooted in that, and making that connection, I think, is a really brilliant way of doing it. I think this is, I think it's kind of like the perfect combination, having Jordan Peele and J.J. Abrams. Like, you get the cool sci-fi monsters and fantasy world building, but you still get the poignant and very, obvious, but at the same time very powerful racial comparisons. I think it just makes for something really, really great and powerful and special. So I'm really, at least from the first episode, I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, and I think I personally love what Misha Green did as the showrunner as well. She definitely killed it, and I think she's a co-executive producer as well. So that whole triple team, I think they knocked out of the park. So passing it to you, Karama, you already said you had some high expectations for this. So what did you think coming out of this first episode?
Well, I thought it was amazing. I do remember when I first heard that it was coming out, I was like, wait, what? And then when I saw, especially when I saw Black people, because I did know the history of H.P. Lovecraft, and I'm like, he was very vocal about his hatred of Black people, hatred of Jews, was very instrumental in trying to make sure lynching laws stayed solid in the South. So I was like, why are we doing this with Black people? And then I saw Misha Green, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm on board. And it's funny, Tananarive Due, the Black sci-fi writer who is also one of the executive producers of Horror Noir, which is an amazing documentary, if you haven't seen it, about the history of Black people in horror.
It's on Shudder.
Yeah, she said very vocally, Black history is Black horror. And I came out of this episode really feeling that. It was very much, I actually didn't know how much they were going to delve into this. I did not read the book. That was on purpose. I didn't know, because a lot of people, talk about Lovecraft and they just throw a little Cthulhu in there, throw a couple tentacles and go, yeah, Lovecraft. But then in the first couple of minutes, when you're not just seeing that crazy dream sequence, but when there's little deep cuts in there when he's having conversations with Courtney B. Vance's character, and he's talking about reading The Reanimator and Herbert West. Like, that's a deep cut. That's like, Herbert West was a character that was reanimating people in a Lovecraft story. The Reanimator was a big slash fest movie in the 80s. So, and then they also addressed the fact that he was really racist and that his father wouldn't have wanted him to read these stories. So I thought that was good, the stuff that they addressed that was really very topical, and they addressed it early. And then also the fact that these little moments of love and little moments of reality, like, I love the fact that we're meeting so many of these different family members. I love the fact that we're seeing Black love, on screen. We're seeing, like, how Journey Smollett Bell's character, how her sister and her brother don't look anything like her, and we're not going to talk about that, but we know why. Like, just little things about, like, how even in my family we don't say half brother, half sister. That's your brother, that's your sister, that's your cousin, and that's how it is so much with so many of the families back then. I really love that the fact, to me, that one of the most terrifying scenes was when she's in the bathroom in the diner by herself. Again, I'm not going to spoil it, but like the big monsters, there are monsters. Yeah. But the big monsters were scary, but they weren't the most terrifying things. And I think Lovecraft is known for cosmic horror, psychological horror. And I think it's a fantastic ode to the genre, because a lot of that horror was happening with things like not the big monster, but the fact that you got to get out of a sundown town before the sun goes down.
Yeah, that complete shift, and once that moment happened, and that the rest of that episode, I really just felt the whole episode I was kind of on the edge of my seat. But once you got to that diner, and then after that whole sequence was just at the edge of my seat. And I don't want to spoil too many details about that, but yeah, it felt like it shifted the whole mood. And you mentioned something earlier just about, I think they did such a great job of how they introduced the ensemble cast, where it already felt like we kind of already knew who these people were. We kind of felt felt like we knew the type of characters these people were without them even have to having much dialogue or anything. It just felt organic about their chemistry, about how they were introduced, about just how everything was going on. So I was really pleasantly surprised with that. And another thing you mentioned, we can't talk about this because it was in the trailer a little bit, but that first just opening 4 minutes when it went from just black and white gray to beautiful color futuristic sci-fi just absolutely blew my mind. So from like a cinematography standpoint, RB3, what was that like for you, just seeing just the first opening 5 minutes of that?
Yeah, I thought it was really great. I thought the spectacle was really well done. I thought it was consistent throughout the rest of the episode. You know, it was nice knowing that it was a flash. It was like a dream sequence, so it was like, you know, it wasn't like a continuous thing of having that kind of tone. When it got to the real stuff, it felt very real. It felt very lived in, and you know, and like you said, it was like the world was building. The characters felt very, very, very detailed and very rich. And, you know, a lot of it came down to the aesthetic too. And then, so when you get into like the deep South and like the kind of the wide landscapes and the empty plains and like the wind blowing and those kind of like iconic aesthetics that you kind of associate with like the Southern iconography, you get the root and evil that's lying underneath too. And that's another sequence that I thought was really well done was not a spoiler sequence, not a spoiler obviously, but there was like kind of a car chase that kind of happens about halfway through the episode that I thought was really thrilling in the way of like not being a conventional kind of car chase per se. It was very built on like we've all said here, the realistic fears that Black people experience in this country. So
yeah, and so we're talking about the cast already, but I want to go down and just like highlight each of our main players. So first, Karama, I just want to get your thoughts on Atticus Freeman, Jonathan Majors, because he's not, I don't want to say he's like a newcomer now. He's got The Last Black Man in San Francisco, and he's starting to really build his resume. So what did you think of his portrayal as Atticus Freeman?
He was also in the Five Bloods.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah, that's right.
So, and it's interesting because he's a veteran, so it's like, oh God, not again. But I thought he was fantastic. I think it's funny because, you know, I'm sure the two of you deal with this. We consume so much, so many shows, so many movies that sometimes we forget, especially in the superhero or in the genre space, the subtleties of acting. Right. And I just think he is so good at those subtle moments, those moments that the twitch on his face and the things that like little things that he does where it's like, oh, it's about to go down, or things that he's acknowledging. You know, even the way he takes his glasses on and off. I really like what I'm seeing from him, and I really hope we see his character get a full arc in this, because I think he could really do a lot with it. I think he could really sink his teeth into it. And I really like how he plays off of Letitia or Alicia. I'm not quite sure what her name is right now. Journey Smollett-Bell's character.
Yeah, Journey.
I like how they play off each other, because it's almost like this unrequited love from a while ago, and none of this happens in the show. I'm not spoiling it. This is just what I see when I see them interact. But I'm really excited about what he's doing, what Majors is doing.
And this is, we keep saying it's not a spoiler, and we're really not spoiling anything, but one thing that he does say early on that really just caught my interest, and he was just saying like, yeah, I'm paraphrasing, but he was like, yeah, like I really love folk noir, just being a little black boy from the South. Like you never see heroes, like you never see the black guy get to be like the hero or be on that journey. And then by the end of the episode, he's basically he's starting his own hero journey, and just like, bro, that was, I just felt like that was such good storytelling. It's like he's embarking now on it, like the hero journey that he's always wanted this whole time, like in his fiction, in his head. And just like, damn, like, all right, I can't wait to see, like you said, I really hope they really just flesh out his whole story arc, his character arc, and we get to see a true hero's journey through him and through his eyes of this like racist America, and him like stepping up and becoming the man he wants to be.
I can't wait till we meet his father.
Yeah.
Because technically he's down there looking for his father, Michael Kenneth Williams from The Wire. So who is an amazing actor. People only remember like 2 or 3 things that he's done, like, but he's really an incredible actor. So the fact that he's looking for his father, and right now we're coded to see what he thinks of his father. We haven't really met him yet. We know they don't have a great relationship. We know that he can be really headstrong. That's coming from even Courtney B. Vance's character. Right. So I'm interested to see what he actually looks like and who he actually is versus the descriptions that we've been given so far.
Yeah, and then so we were already talking about Journey, so I'll pass it to you first, RB3. But like her nickname is Letty, so we're gonna call her Letty for
We're
the.
gonna say Letty, okay.
So
And I think
Letty.
it might be short for Letitia, so I think we're all right.
Yeah,
Put
we're.
that out
There
there.
we go. There we go.
So Letty, we got Journey Smollett, and I just love that she's doing more. Like this is her second. We're getting to see her sing again. We got to see her sing in Birds of Prey, and they're like, hey, she got a voice. Let's let her sing. Like it wove perfectly into the story. So getting to introduce her through that, and then we get to see her. I want to say she was the badass of the episode. Like we got to see her do so many amazing moments. So RB3, what did you think of her character and her introduction and how she's portraying this character?
I thought it was really great. I think she has a really interesting, like, kind of radical dynamic. You know, you always kind of judge characters by like the way like other characters interact when they enter a room. And whenever she kind of enters a room, everybody kind of either, you know, people in her family are either very like, oh no, she's back around, what's going on, or it's a very much like a very like kind of happy embrace or something like that. So it's kind of fun to see what is her character background, like where is she coming from, what's her whole deal, what's her relationship going to develop with the main character. And I'm super excited to see the potential that this character has. But yeah, I mean, in terms of later parts of the episode, she really stepped up as like kind of almost a bigger action star than Jonathan Myers did. So I thought it was really, really cool.
And for you, Karama, you mentioned earlier just about her character. So can you just talk a little bit about what you thought of her over this whole course of this first episode?
Well, I thought it was fantastic what we learned about her. I mean, there's a reason. There's like a thing that she has with both of her siblings who live in two different places. But I'm curious as to find out what would keep her like from attending. Like there's a big family event. She didn't show up, and it's really getting on the siblings' nerves. And I'm curious to find out why that happened. It's also like just like she enters, she kind of flies into the place, you know, and she's very stylish, she's very fashionable, but as her sister's teasing her about, she doesn't have any money. What happened? Like there's a whole story there. Like, what did you just come here for? Are you running from something? Who hurt you? Like that's what I wanted to know. And then also, we even can tell from the scene like with her brother until basically the end of the episode that she's had to fend for herself. So there's certain things that she does in here is like, you didn't just learn that yesterday, you know? And you also get the feeling like we get and again, not spoiling it, like we get at the end, like this is all divine. Like all three of them are exactly where they're supposed to be for a very particular reason. And there's one thing that I will say. There's a scene that happens where the men are kept back by a group of white men, but they let her go. And I know there was a couple people that had even asked me like, why you're like, that was kind of foul. I'm like, Black women have always been considered expendable. And that's a prime example. So don't worry, y'all, she lives. But it's just a situation where I was like, damn it, here we go again. You know, and you know, she couldn't be possibly as powerful as, you know, these men. These men are going to be the real problem. And that's actually saying so much about like our community and what even happens to us, what we've been looking at the past 2 months. Right. Like as Black women, we are regularly out in front, regularly taking the licks, but and I'm not saying that we're not being killed. We are absolutely being killed. But notice it's the Black men who are being either even more vilified or memorialized or turned into martyrs over what is happening in our communities. So that was like a subtle moment that sort of reinforced that, and I was like, okay, I see what you did there, and I it's like a subtle wink from Misha. So I think that's powerful.
And speaking of, you also mentioned early on, because we're going to talk about Courtney B. Vance as George and just his portrayal of the character. But something that we got to see a lot with his character is Black love and older, and specifically like Black don't crack. But we'll say like older Black love, and you don't get to see that too often, especially in these mainstream type of sci-fi genre shows. So what can you just talk about that? Because I personally love that, and I'm like, that was one of the first scenes. Like we're starting off with some Black love that I'm all for it. So
that whole scene was amazing. Like, you know, him in bed with his wife, they're having a little morning nookie, whatever, you know. But what was also really cool was the daughter in the other room, like, you know, there's so many images of families that don't have Black fathers. There's so many images of people struggling, and we've seen a lot of images of Black folks on in fiction and reality, being hurt, being killed. So there's a little bit of a desensitization to that a lot. So I think also that when you see a happy family, you're like, whoa. I thought it was adorable how he encouraged his daughter to write her own little comic books that she would send with him. And I called it. It's so funny because I remember yelling and my boyfriend was like, what? I'm like, it's the Green Book, like the book that he's working on, his little travel guide. It's not called the Green Book, but I really think that that was Misha's ode to the real life Green Book that was given to Black folks to be able to travel safely throughout the South. And you never think about the fact that somebody had to risk their life to do that. Somebody had to risk their life to write that book, to go to the places that we were not welcome and were chased out of and say, nope, don't go there ever. And these are the sundown towns. And this is so that Black folks could travel to see their family members, could travel to see each other, to travel north.
For
so
sure,
people,
damn.
he is actually, when you're looking at Courtney B. Vance's character, I feel like he is the previous generation of the hero that is sort of passing the torch. When he talks about how he can't use his knee anymore, it's because they broke it. Like, not in the show. This is his past story. And
Right.
it's just a sentence. It's just a moment. But and that's what's so brilliant about this writing. We're getting volumes of story in just these little moments from these people.
Yeah, now like how you doing, you approached it cold turkey without having read the book, but now like after seeing this first episode, and then what I want to do is just completely process the first season, then go back to the book, just kind of
me
get
too.
the comparison, just because already this first episode has so many just layered messages and just layered things, paying homage to the book, just paying homage to different things in general. So I couldn't even imagine going to the source material. So we'll definitely do that once the thing is over. But we don't want to keep you guys too long, so I do want to just wrap it up and get some of our like just overall final thoughts of the season and what we're looking forward to moving forward with this series. So I'll start with you, RB3.
Yeah, I really dug it. I really loved it. I thought every cast member in this show shows a lot of potential and is going to be really exciting. I think to me, my biggest highlight was actually Courtney B. Vance's character as well. Yeah, like y'all said, he was like charismatic and funny, but still very wise and very concerned of his age. I like the mythology. I like everything that they're setting up, like you said, with the mixture of the Lovecraft, iconography and the monsters and the fantasy mixed with this real life racism and like you said, the concept of the Green Book wasn't, and I think the name is like the Negro Motorist Green Book or something like that. And I think the idea of mixing the Lovecraft story with that story and kind of mixing those two together in a kind of interesting way is something that I could get really excited about. So I think it's going to be something I'm going to look forward to every Sunday watching. So
And what about you, Karama?
I'm interested in two things, very different things. One, the women. Obviously, Journey, we just talked about her, but there's a woman he's speaking to in Korean in the beginning. He left somebody in Korea. He bounced. Like she said, you shouldn't have done that, at the end of that conversation. So I need to know who that woman is. Is she Korean or is she just speaking Korean? Who's the white woman that keeps showing up just randomly in the road? Who are you? Where did you get this really nice car? And then the other thing is, the actual Lovecraft monsters themselves. We meet a couple of the elder gods. Those of you who are Lovecraft fans will know what that means. But the fact that the elder gods, if you know in Lovecraft, are fed on anger and on hate, which is basically part and parcel to Lovecraft himself, as well as these characters. I think it's a perfect example of, and even though it is Misha Green's show, but Jordan Peele is the executive producer, taking something that we all normally look at every day and sort of that is usually detrimental to us or that is talking against us or about us and turning it around and making it for us and about us. And I love that. And I can't wait to see more of that this season.
Definitely. And so I'm going to just end it on this because we do have a review on the Geeks Color website. So I did want to just highlight this excerpt from our writer, Brittany Murphy. She says, while many may call this series timely, it is far from it. Timely makes it seem as though the experience on the show is an element resurfaced from the past. The truth of the matter is that this experience is one that never left. It's always been here, and what Lovecraft Country indeed shows is that Black people are still suffering from racism and dealing with very real monsters. Lovecraft Country is unapologetic in the ways that it shows the world. It is something that should be appreciated because while it's within the science fiction genre, it is rooted in reality, unlike any other series in the same vein. So I'll leave it on that, and I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching. And before we leave, I just want to say also, Karama, thank you for joining us. Where can they find you at?
You can find me. I'm the Blerd Girl everywhere. TheBlerdgurl. Mostly Twitter and Instagram. Y'all know I get mail on Twitter. And I can attest to the fact that I'll probably be live tweeting the show every week because it's amazing.
Yep. So definitely make sure to follow her. And RB3, where can they find you at over at The First Cut?
You can find me at First Cut on YouTube, The Meaning of Podcast, on anywhere you can find podcasts. And you can follow me directly at Director RB3 on Instagram and Twitter.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, guys. Make sure to hit that like, subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Geeks of Color. Make sure to do that. Follow us on Facebook. Do all that good stuff. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll probably be back next week for another review. Who knows? But thank you so much. Hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll see you soon. Peace up. A-Town down.